All right, aloha and welcome to the June 2020 AFCEA Hawaii Virtual Luncheon, co-hosted by AFCEA International. My name is Jeff Bloom, and I'm the president of AFCEA Hawaii chapter. Our speaker today is General Charles Q. Brown, Jr., Commander, Pacific Air Forces Air Component Commander for U.S. Indo-Pacific Command and Executive Director, Pacific Air Combat Operations Staff, Joint Base Pearl Harbor, Hickam, Hawaii. Today, we're honored to have General Brown as our guest speaker, especially before he starts his new role as the 22nd Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force. Sir, congratulations on your recent unanimous Senate confirmation. Before we begin, one programming note. General Brown will be taking a few questions at the conclusion of his remarks. If you would like to submit a question, please use the Zoom chat window that says Ask Questions Here. General Brown, on behalf of the AFCEA Ohana, we're excited to hear your perspective on data protection to project combat power. Sir, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Let me start out today's conversation by throwing out some numbers. 102, 52, and 25. Those numbers could relate to just about anything. In this case, however, it's our identifiers associated with the challenges for the Indo-Pacific. Before I go any further, I'd like to take a minute and thank Jeff Bloom, Mr. Michael Boutte, he's on the board of directors, Corey Lindo for the invitation, and all the members of AFCEA that are joining us today. I truly appreciate your time and focus and interest in the challenges that you helped and will continue to help us address. Now I'd like to return to the numbers. The focus of our nation has been on Europe and the Middle East, and I've spent quite a bit of time in the Middle East as the United States Central Command, both at the headquarters and forward deployed at the KI. But I would also tell you that when you start talking about the Indo-Pacific, it's not as well understood. The fact that the Indo-Pacific is big, it's really big. It's approximately 102 million square miles. I like to say it's Hollywood to Bollywood, polar bears to penguins. That 102 million square miles equates to about 52% of the world's of the Earth's surface, and it's all mostly water. But it's 100% covered by air, and so that's why PACAF is intensely involved and interested in the Indo-Pacific. In that 52% of the Earth's surface, there's about 25,000 islands that we can all operate from. Indo-PACOM is priorities drives us to look at how we increase lethality as a joint force through enhanced design and posture, and how we work closely with our allies and partners to improve our interoperability through exercises, experimentation, and innovation. All this is to provide a free and open Indo-Pacific. The crux of realizing each of one of these objectives is the access to data. I like to use an analogy to illustrate my point. And any time while I'm in Hawaii, I can grab my phone, open my banking app, and check my accounts. If I travel to Japan, if I travel to Korea, if I travel to Australia, New Zealand, India, or any place else in the region, I can open up that same app and view my accounts. Every one of these places has a different network, but I'm able to securely access the data associated with my banking accounts. This is exactly what I need to project combat power and guarantee a free and open Indo-Pacific. Now, by now, many of you may have heard or be familiar with the concept of Joint All-Domain Command and Control, or JADC2. That's the ability to connect, communicate, and integrate, and to synchronize all kinetic and non-kinetic effects. It is essential to our future warfighting concepts. Currently, our primary plans have us executing as if we were connected, and our contingency and emergency plans address execution where we're disconnected or our communication is contested. I really believe we got to kind of flip our train of thought. We should be planning primarily to operate in a contested integrated environment. And if we find ourselves fully connected, we should be surprised and then suspect that we're being spooked. Now, from a COMPACAF or Commander Pacific Air Force perspective, here's what I need. For JADC2 has that end goal of connecting every sensor to every shooter. But in the near term, I want us to be able to concentrate on connecting the right sensor to the right shooter. Now, JADC2 capabilities should not only support the joint team, but it should also put a priority on how we our ability to share with our allies and partners. We need a self-healing or a mesh network that has the ability to push data from collection to completion of the kill chain. We need multiple pathways so the tax on our ability to communicate and make decisions is mitigated. I need a highly dependable kill web that is not easily disconnected, it's not vulnerable, and it's not limited by range. We also need software-based solutions with open mission systems that assist JADC2 to seamlessly connect and accelerates and upgrades. We need to move away from hardware solutions and move into more software solutions that can make our forces more agile, more connected, and not behind the technology curve. Essentially, I need a system that allows me to push data from a global cloud to a regional cloud, so that PACAF, the joint team, and our international partners have access to information they need to make decisions. It needs to be so it's unencumbered by the vast region or reach of 102 million square miles of distance. Simultaneously available to access 52% of the Earth's surface, and with the same instantaneous speed across all of the 25,000 lines here in the Indo-Pacific. Traditionally, we as military components have identified challenges and then created a list of capability gaps that once filled will address those challenges. There's actually some doubt in my mind that if I provide an audience of this caliber a list of capability gaps with stated requirements, and that you will be able to fill the list. I have no doubt you can do that. And by the same time, it is in the hands of the warfighter. By the time it gets there, it's late to need. Either the technology would be outdated or the gap being addressed would have changed. That being said, I think we have the process a bit backwards. We don't know what we don't know. You all have an idea, a prototype, or a product that addresses our challenges. But we get in the way of stifling your creativity by outlining very specific requirements. We enjoy the support of many talented contractors, industry partners, and R&D partners. I'm really personally committed to, and that's something I've been working on at PACAF, to improving and expediting the dialogue between our warfighters, our acquisition professionals, and industry. So we can unleash the spiral development, bringing capability to the warfighter much sooner. We don't have to obtain perfection. Let's not let perfect be the enemy good enough. I'm happy to take a 50 to 60, 70% solution now versus a no solution or a solution is late to need. In closing, I'd like to reiterate the challenges we face in the Indo-Pacific and the critical nature of access to data. Our ability to access data regardless of distance, regardless of geographic location, and with lightning speed is the backbone of our capacity to project combat power. My hope is that at least one of you will say, hey, don't worry, General Brown, I've got an app for that. With that, I'm happy to answer your questions, any question you may have. And as I like to say, I may not have an answer to your question, but I have a lot of opinions, and I'm happy to share my opinions with you today. So with that, Jeff, back over to you.
Thank you, sir. And Terry Rogers has the questions. They've been coming to him, so I will let him read the questions to you as we go through them.
Well, sir, thank you for being with us today. First question's a multi-parter. First part of it, are you happy with the progress of PACAF's Agile Combat Employment effort, and how has the engagement of these small groups of multifunctional airmen increased capabilities in the Indo-Pacific region?
I would tell you I'm never happy. I mean, we've made progress, but not as fast as I probably think we could have. And one of the challenges that I think we've had is trying to get all of us going the same way, same day. And it was really about a year ago what I found across the Air Force. We were all doing some aspect of Agile Combat Employment. And what I found was we were probably spending more time debating about who had the better who had the better concept. And so what I did was with the other MAJCOMs or major commanders is I asked our deputy commanders to come together and let's figure out the things we can agree on. And then we can debate later on about what we disagree about. And so we have actually made some pretty good progress with a number of major commands, me working very closely with General Reagan in Europe, so that we are kind of really as an Air Force going same way, same day, because we are the two Air Force components that actually have the major war plans when you look at the national defense strategy for Russia and for China. And so we have made progress there. On multi-capable airmen, there's two aspects to it. One is the actual training and building out a syllabus, and we're in the second iteration of the syllabi to outline the multi-capable airmen. The thing I'm concerned about is that we make it too prescriptive, that we bog ourselves down in training. The second part is a mindset. And that mindset is to get past some of the union cards that, exist in certain career fields that say you can't do this because of X, Y, or Z. And we need to be able to do, and the way I look at it, if we got into a high-end fight, no different from major conflicts we've been in before, if we start losing capability or losing service members, then someone's got to step into the breach and make things happen. And they may not be fully trained, but they got to have the initiative to be able to step into the job and be able to execute. And that's something that, if you don't have that ingrained into your day-to-day process, it's going to be hard to do when you get into a conflict.
Well, thank you, sir. And as a follow-on to that, are there any specific challenges with the ACE effort that industry could focus on to assist you?
I think the big picture and where industry helps us out is, helping us get past our own, giving us feedback, and I think part of this is why when I talk about the concept of agile capital deployment and how we build a mesh network, I can do my wireless network at home, but I can't do a mesh network. I don't fully appreciate the ins and outs, and there may be an easier way. And so this is where industry can come back to us and tell us, hey, your requirements are either overstated or you're shooting too low. And this is why I think it's going to be really important in the future as we go forward, is the collaboration with industry, because as I said, we don't know what we don't know. And I see things just on my day-to-day, use of the internet, that I realize there's some capability out there that we don't have inside of DoD. We got to break down some of those barriers, make it much easier for industry to work with DoD. So that's where I think it's give us feedback where our process is, broken or takes too long. And that's going to be a way for industry to help us out. And then I think the other aspect is we got to do more software-based solutions that aren't proprietary. And if we make it proprietary, then it makes it too hard. And the analogy I use, use your smartphone, for example. Your smartphone is a baseline, but I can get an app from just about anybody and put it into, we got to be kind of using the same kind of protocols in order to do that. And that's the approach that the more industry does that, I think the better off we'll be in the long run as a Department of Defense.
Thank you, sir. Next question. What advice do you plan to give to your successor as PACAF commander about operations in the region, as well as the threats the U.S. and its allies face?
Actually, the first piece of advice I would give to him is relationships really matter. And the one thing that our adversaries don't have is they don't have allies and partners. And the relationships that were built by my predecessors, the relationships that I have with the air chiefs in the region are really help bring us together much closer to be able to actually act as a deterrence as well as act as assurance. And so part of that is, how do we stay engaged? And so right now, over the course of probably the past 2 weeks, I've been talking to every air chief in the region. I got the last 2 to talk to tonight before I give up command next week. But it's not just to say goodbye, but it's to talk about what we've accomplished and where we need to go. And, oh, by the way, my successor has more, General Wilsbach has more time here in the Indo-Pacific than I do. So that's the first piece. The second piece is, what we need to do is actually spend more time understanding our adversary. I think we have a real comfort zone understanding violent extremists to an extent. We have a real comfort zone about understanding the Russians based on our experience during the Cold War. I don't know that we have the same level of expertise within the Department of Defense, within our airmen, that understand the PRC, how they operate, how they think. We understand, how many airplanes they have, how many missiles, those kinds of things, ranges. We need to really get into and understand this region much more than we do. And that's the part that I would actually offer to him as well.
Okay, thank you. Next question. How does the PACAF mesh network compare to similar efforts by DISA, ABMS, Kessel Run, and others? And wouldn't it make more sense to combine efforts versus building duplicative network infrastructure?
Yeah. Well, actually, I'll tell you, we're not really building a PACAF mesh network. That's what I need. I don't care who provides it. I mean, that's what I need as a warfighter. And I'm not going to get into a contest of, and ABMS is more actually on a good path with JADC2. And so we actually have one of the demos that's going to happen out here in September. And that's something I've been pushing for. So we can actually have it here. And then, oh, by the way, leave it behind. And I'll just tell you, NORCOM NORAD under General Shaughnessy was at the leading edge of some of the ABMS work in JADC2. And some of the things, they were supposed to do another demo in April. And because of COVID, they didn't. But what they did do was take advantage of the capability they already had on an unclassified system and use that in their COVID response. And so they've actually progressed it further than they would have in the second demo, which is now going to be done in August. And we'll do the third demo out here in September. And so it's really how, as you're working on these different aspects, and this is really what about innovation. Okay, so I can go to one company or one approach, dump a bunch of money in there, and figure out later on it didn't work. By going through all these different programs, whether it be Kessler Run, through our ABMS and our chief architect, it's really working with a number of different partners to get the best of breed, which means there's going to be, with innovation, there's going to be some failures here and there. And that's the part we got to work through. And really, if you have an open mission system network, then everybody can work together and it's not proprietary. When it becomes proprietary, then it makes it really hard for us to have something that we can connect every sensor to every shooter without paying a bunch of money.
Okay, so I think we have time for 2 more questions. First one of your PACAF programs has been highlighted recently as a giant step forward for INDOPACOM capabilities. What can you tell us about PACnet and how industry might engage on PACnet?
Well, PACnet is really allowing us to actually access the cloud. And with PACnet, we were building the cloud, and then we have our access point is security. And this is something we've been working on for a period of time. And you know, I've got some industrious officers who actually kept, they really kept beating me up, but they also had a pretty high price tag of what they were asking for, more money than I had to give. And they were actually able to, our ABMS office, you know, get their attention and get money. And with that, with PACnet as kind of the backbone and SecureView as our access point, what we've been able to do is buy laptops. And actually, I'm using one right now as I'm transitioning out of the job. And so with that particular laptop, I can access, there's no classified information on it, but on the same screen, I can go control, you know, 1 or 2 and go from SIPR, secret network, to an unclassified network. And the laptop itself has no secret data on it. That's the beauty of being able to connect and being able to, now I will tell you, it's got some clunkiness that we're still working through, but it actually saves me from having to carry as many things I have to be able to connect. And so it's that kind of capability that we're able to bring things together. So you have multi-level security, I can have one piece of equipment that allows me to connect at different classification levels. And I think that's the beauty of being able to use PACnet as a backbone, as kind of the cloud to help bring the data in, and then SecureView as our access point. And we have that in our headquarters. We bought a number of laptops. And so, you know, what we've been able to do during COVID, for example, is when we had people teleworking, they could actually, you know, call in secure into a VTC. We just couldn't see them, but we could talk to them, which is more capability than we had, you know, 3-4 months ago before we got into COVID. And so we've actually stretched the boundary of the things we can do with PACnet and with security.
So final question would be, and you've addressed this somewhat, but specifically, if you could prioritize 1 or 2 technical capabilities for investigation for industry, what might those be?
Terry, I'll tell you, I can probably take a couple more. I've got another like 8 or 9 minutes, so you can if you got some more in the queue, you can ask those. I think it's how we're able to connect and use data. And I don't know if I had a really good answer to be able to say, okay, here's the right technology, but it's how do we actually take advantage of the data? And this is what, you know, with the staff here, and it's really, there may be some cultural aspects about how we pull data together so that a data aggregation tool can actually pull that data in and then create a dashboard of information that becomes useful to a decision maker. And on top of that, having enough data available so we can actually do the artificial intelligence that actually will give you, you know, a good recommendation going forward. I think a lot of that already exists. It's just how do we get it into, you know, how do I make the data available in the right structured format, if required, that a company can work with. And that's the feedback we need to have as we talk to industry. Because we collect a lot of data, but I'm not sure we actually do it in the right way so industry can actually take advantage of it. And so that's why I think the collaboration between the warfighter in industry with the acquisition professionals in the middle to kind of figure out how to pay, how to pay for it, make it a program of record. That's the key aspect of this. And that's why, I really believe we don't know what we don't know. And, I think for us sitting down with industry partners and really talking through, here's what we're trying to achieve. And they're able to tell us, we actually have some capability to do some of what you've asked us to do, and that we can't get overly prescriptive either. And I think that's one of our challenges as warfighters. And I think we have a habit kind of DoD to kind of do that, where we route out these requirements, and these requirements are written, and by the time we get something delivered, it's way late. We got to be flexible. Last thing I would kind of say on this, our challenge here is as we work with our budget cycle and we work with Congress, how we articulate, a line of code, of software code, versus that they can't really see, versus an airplane sitting on a ramp or a bomb sitting on a bomb rack. They track oversight, and how we're able to articulate that with the Congress who oversees how we spend our money. That's something we got to work on as well.
Thank you, sir. Questions continue to come in, so if you got time, we'll keep rolling. First up, it has been reported that the Air Force is beta testing SpaceX Starlink LEO satellite-based networking. Are you familiar with this capability? And if so, might it be a game changer for Indo-PACOM?
Yeah, I am actually. I went out to SpaceX in, I think it was November, and had a chance to talk to some of their technicians about the satellite a little bit. And I've talked a little bit to General Raymond, the Space Force Chief of Space Operations. So it has capability, and the fact that you can actually, the key part of something like this is to be able to proliferate a number of them in low Earth orbit. At the same time, if one of those were actually to go out, you can actually very quickly replace it. And it's not something that's going to take several years and several $1 billion to actually replace. It's something that can be done on a short order time frame. And that's the beauty, I think, what I'm seeing as we work with the commercial sector in space and use our DoD. You just saw what happened with the going out to the International Space Station. It's those kind of concepts like that that are, I think, when I'm in our earlier conversation and the questions, that's the kind of things we need to be able to do, where DoD and commercial industry partner together to provide a capability that's going to not only support us as a warfighter, but also has the ways to support our commerce and other things in trade, in awareness, weather satellites, those kinds of things. There's things we can work together on, and I think that's an important aspect of being able to learn from each other.
Next question. Some global industry partners are also targets for adversaries and have vast telemetry feeds. How can industry and DoD collaborate to make our whole greater than the sum of the parts?
Well, a big part of this, Terry, is for us to look at how we protect all of our data. I mean, that's an aspect of in understanding where we're vulnerable. And part of this, most of the, I would imagine most of you that are on the net today know when you actually have a breach, it's typically because of bad hygiene, where folks aren't doing the right thing to protect their networks. And that's why I believe in, one aspect is using zero trust network, and that type of technology, because with a standard network where it's kind of the moat with a drawbridge, once they're in, they're in. But with zero trust, they got to work a bit harder. But really, it's all we all work collectively to protect ourselves, protect whatever small company it might be to a major defense contractor, as we're all in this together. So one of us doesn't become the gateway for our secrets getting stolen. And so we got to take that part seriously. And there is risk. And I will just tell you, one of the things we found as we did the teleworking, it does increase your risk. But the more activity you have, and more of it's a needle in the haystack that they got to find the right piece of information to pull that together. And so it's something we got to continue to work on together.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Do you perceive that the nature of war has changed given the emergence of disinformation capabilities from our adversaries?
Most definitely. And when you got to think about war, and when people talk about war or conflict, we tend to think about kinetic type activity, or it's full up. Well, I'd say we're in conflict right now in some aspects. When you start looking at what goes on in the cyber environment, that's one part. The disinformation is trying to change influence trying to change perspectives, and it impacts how each of us look at our own national security, each nation look at its own national security. And so the disinformation campaigns help influence countries to go partner up with one versus another. And this is something we have got to stay on top of and understand how much information, because of the broad access to information today, it's very easy with disinformation for folks, a country or an actor to influence behavior in different parts of the world, in the region. And so it's important that we pay attention to that, and we've got to be a little more proactive. This is something I think we don't do very well. We tend to be more reactive than proactive. And so part of this is thinking. This is why you need to understand the thought process for your adversary about how they do this.
Okay, sir. Jeff just gave me the warning. This is our last question.
Okay.
What is your view on expanding the commercial solutions for classified footprint in the Indo-PACOM theater?
I think there's a lot of potential there. I mean, and this is why I believe in the kind of zero trust network and other aspects. And that's why I like PACnet and SecureView, because I can actually access secure information anywhere using the right encryptions through a cellular network or Wi-Fi network very easily. And this is something that and using you can write it on the backbone of a commercial means, but have the encryption that protects the data or the classified communications. And the more we're able to do that, I think it makes it harder for our adversary because you're hiding in plain sight. But it also gives us the flexibility so that you are not tied to a desktop someplace inside inside of a vault, and you can still get the job done. And it gives us flexibility as warfighters.